Hello, everybody. Welcome to Billboard Comics, and this is our second installment of my new feature, The Crossroads of Comic Books and History. This is a feature where I cover on how real-world events affected the comic books you know and love, and basically taking a walk down memory lane with more factual basis than the growing up comics thing. I'm going to start it off this week and ask you a question. Do you like Christmas music? Who doesn't? I mean, unless you don't believe in Christmas or a different religion. But I digress. If you're listening to Christmas music, which you probably start right about now because that's usually how they do things. They probably have all the Christmas decorations out. In between that Mariah Carey song that's everywhere and the Ram song that people are trying to not listen to avoid Ramageddon, you'll hear, do they know it's Christmas? It's a big song featuring artists such as Bono and Sting and Simon Le Bon from Duran Duran and a whole bunch of other big name British artists of the day. And I don't know if you realize the story behind that. Some of you might just think it's okay, it's a charity benefit one that was made years ago. Why is it still being played today? Well, because it's now become a Christmas standard, and also the charity that it was to support, the cause that it was used to actually address, it has gotten better, but has not completely gone away, and it involves famine in Ethiopia. Between 1983 and 1985, there was a widespread famine in the African nation of Ethiopia. It affected 7.75 million people. That's out of the 40 million Ethiopian residents. Before it was over, estimates are kind of tough because it took place in places that really didn't have more rural, more remote areas. The death toll from this famine could have been anywhere from 300,000 people to 1.2 million people. That's about 1/5 of the entire population. In addition, 2.5 million people were displaced from Ethiopia during this time and moved to other lands, and sometimes the situation didn't get that much better. This also left the famine almost left 200,000 people orphaned. And it was one of the most horrific incidents that happened. I remember as a youth. I was 11 or 12 at the time, and I'm seeing the pictures on the news, and babies with their bellies distended and arms like toothpicks walking around, and their flies are buzzing around them, and they can't even move their arms enough. They don't have enough energy to do that, and people crying, and nurses having to decide which baby to save and which to let die, depending on when they get the food shipment in, because they didn't have enough for everybody. It was harrowing. It was torturous, and it went on because of a drought in the country, and also there's war in the country. There's warlords that made it difficult to get aid to people or help the famine to rectify the drought or the famine or anything like that. So it went. So this message went from being something that could have been easily addressed to a worldwide disaster overnight. And I saw those and I was just torn apart by it. But I wasn't the only person who saw that. Bob Geldof, he is one of the creative forces behind the British band, he's Irish band actually, Boomtown Rats, saw the reports of this on BBC, and he was also moved and disturbed by this. However, he was quite a bit older than me, established in the music industry, and decided he was going to do something about it. He contacted one of his contemporaries, Midge Ure, who was from the band Ultravox, and they decided to try to put together a benefit recording to help the famine relief. They did this is where the Do They Know It's Christmas came from. They called their initiative Band-Aid. Get it? A band who's aiding people, but also Band-Aid. They recorded the song between 11:25 and 11:26, 1984. It became one of the biggest hits in UK and the world. It was number one in the UK for 5 or 6 weeks. It became the Christmas song for that year in the UK, and it inspired other people to do stuff. Most notably, the American artists. Quincy Jones, Lionel Richie, and Michael Jackson were inspired to actually do a similar version featuring American-centered artists. They did a whole recording after the American Music Awards on January 28th, 1985. And this was a snapshot of the pop culture musical icons of the day. It's almost like it's more impressive about who did not show up, let alone by who did show up. There's a whole documentary based on the Live Aid, the USA for Africa, which is what they named their initiative to do this, and they named the song We Are the World. There's a whole documentary on Netflix about the whole process of coming together and making the song and recording it. But amongst the people there, obviously, Jackson and Richie were on the thing, Hall & Oates, Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, Ray Charles, Tina Turner, Cyndi Lauper, a constellation of stars from the music industry, all there for one night, all under the production of one of the greatest music producers of all time, Quincy Jones. And they came together, and they also did their benefit single to help the famine relief. Both these incidents combined to culminate in Live Aid. Live Aid was a joint concert in London and Philadelphia that took place on July 13th, 1985. They had a full stock lineup of bands that were included. Legendary names, obscure names. Led Zeppelin reformed in Philadelphia. They, granted, it was like about 5 years after they actually kind of broke up, so it wasn't a recent memory breakup, but they nonetheless, we came together with Phil Collins filling in for John Bonham, who had passed away, and they did a set in Philadelphia. This is the London set was known for the Queen performance. If you've seen Bohemian Rhapsody, you know this was their big statement comeback kind of concert, and they just gave one of the best performances ever. And Phil Collins is known for actually performing on both concerts. Due to the time change, the one in London started far earlier than the one in the United States, so he did his part there, hopped on a Concorde. The Concorde was a supersonic transit jet back in the 80s. I don't think they have it anymore, it doesn't exist, but it was able to travel the Atlantic at higher speeds than the conventional airplanes we have now. Came here, I think it took 2 hours for him to get here, and he performed in America as well. Like I said, he did the drums for Led Zeppelin. I think he did his own set of himself in America too. And all the while this concert was going on, constantly they had numbers where you could call in and donate, and you could offer as much as you can to help the famine relief. And it did help. It helped a lot. It did help alleviate the suffering and the pain and stuff like this. But it didn't just stay there. Bob Geldof didn't just inspire USA for Africa and Live Aid. He also inspired the world of comic books. Most notably, 2 individuals, Jim Starlin and Bernie Wrightson. Even now, Jim Starlin and Bernie Wrightson are legend names in comic book history. Obviously, Mr. Wrightson is no longer with us, but he's known as one of the preeminent horror artists in all of comic book history. He was kind of like the next generation after the EC guys who set the standard, and he took it to a whole nother level. And of course, you have Jim Starlin, who is a legendary writer, creator of Thanos and Star Fox, and had a hand in the creation, forming and popularity of Warlock and Captain Marvel. So these are 2 big guys now, but even back then, they were really big. And the story goes that both those guys went into Jim Struter's office and floated the idea of having a benefit comic book to benefit this cause. I don't know if they expected any backlash for it, but Jim Shooter was a consummate businessman, at least to a fault, maybe even, and he saw like this was going to be a great idea. So he did it. He put it together. He tried to do most of the back and kind of the behind the scenes outlook, while Jim Starlin, Bernie Wrightson, Ann Nocenti, and Chris Claremont did most of the kind of corralling the artists and artisans, stuff like this. And the amount of people that got for this was amazing. But Starlin and Wrightson didn't just have a relationship with Marvel, they also had a relationship with DC, and if they did this for any other comic book, try to play both ends against the middle, they would have probably been blackballed from comic books forever. But at the same time they're trying to put together the Marvel benefit book, they went over to DC to work with them to try to do a benefit book, and they were all for it too as well. So through Jim Starlin and Bernie Wrightson's efforts, we got 2 comic books that would benefit the famine relief effort in Ethiopia. The first one that came out was the Marvel one, Heroes for Hope, featuring the X-Men. Jim Shooter offered the X-Men, so he says, or he said he might have been an idea that, but he approved of it, of X-Men being the lead in this. The X-Men were the biggest and most popular team at the time. No, hands down. Biggest moneymaker. So if you want to put a benefit book that people are going to buy, this is where you do that. The amount of creators they have like this, it's an interesting dichotomy between the two, because the DC comic book one was more, the both benefit books represented the comic book companies at the time pretty accurately. Marvel was kind of looser, goosier, hipper, happening, and the DC one was more staid and conservative. Just look at if you look at the amount of creators involved in the Marvel one, you'll be able to see that. You can tell it right away. Stephen King wrote 2 pages. According to Jim Shooter, he has a little blog on his website. He said he gave 5,000 words, or 5,000 words for his 2 pages, and the editors had to wean it down to a 2-page thing. His spot was drawn by Bernie Wrightson, and that's a pairing made in heaven. I think they worked on Creep Show around the same time, but 2 horror legends coming together, you can't beat that. Like I said, it's amazing. Harlan Ellison also contributed, and they also had all the big names of the game: John Byrne, Chris Claremont. I think Frank Miller did stuff. Harlan Ellison did a thing with I believe Richard Corbin. That a great pairing. Great artists and writers you wouldn't necessarily find, and the storyline is more esoteric. It was a kind of a ultra-dimensional force, I guess the kind of a mythological or spiritual version of hunger has come and landed near the X-Men, and yet each X-Men has to face it in their own, and they each have a different kind of way of going through stuff. It is amazing just to look at. It's amazing to read, and as itself, it's pretty amazing. The DC version one seemed more kind of in-house. Most of I had one outside artist of note, writer of note, and that was Robert Bloch. Robert Bloch obviously probably made the contribution due to his connection. Julie Schwartz, I think, was one of the head honchos in this one, and it was a big name in editing science fiction before he got the job at DC Comics, and he knew a lot of really big name science writers. Some of them like Otto Binder and a bunch of other ones he brought over and had them write comic books. So he probably knew Bloch from that era of the science fiction thing. Robert Bloch, in case you don't know, was the man who wrote the novel that the movie Psycho was based on. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Psycho, Norman Bates. Mother! Yeah, he wrote the book that was based on that, so he's a big name to get. It was just kind of he's their version of Stephen King. Before Stephen King was Stephen King, Robert Bloch was Robert Bloch. But he was the only guy. Everything else was like basically in-house, done inside and stuff. And the plotline was more cohesive and more comic booky. Yeah, an alien comes down and is causing a famine. And the famine is so severe that Batman and Superman have to team up with Lex Luthor to actually, fight the famine and get it taken care of. And it is weird because one of the segments is Lex Luthor seeing the suffering caused by the famine and breaking down in tears. This is the green jumpsuit, megalomaniac, bad guy, bad to the bone, Lex Luthor. So it's kind of like interesting to actually see that scene in the book there. I think a couple decades later, J. Michael Straczynski would have to do a tribute to 9/11 in Amazing Spider-Man. And he had one of the scenes, one of the famous panels from it, is Dr. Doom shedding a tear for the destruction. Would Doom really do this? Doom in the comic books has destroyed entire universes, so probably not. But in the moment, in the feeling of the moment, it makes sense. So I wonder if J. Michael Straczynski was inspired by the whole Lex Luthor bit from this. Both things made like tens of thousands of dollars for famine relief. I believe the comic book made like the Marvel version made 75,000, I believe, 75 or 25,000. Like one of those. They had a big thing. It wasn't donated to Oxfam. If you want, like everything's on. I'll try to maybe link down here to the blog that Mr. Shooter wrote about it. He was going to go through Oxfam, which was the paragon for the famine relief efforts, like the vanguard, the first into the breach of that. So you're going to get at them, but Oxfam, which is still around, shot them down. And, Jim Galton, who's the president, and Jim Shooter, and the woman in charge of the publicity, called the representative in to find out what, and they said, like, the guy came in, he was dressed like a high roller in Vegas. He had gold chains, gold rings, Armani suit. He was dressed like not somebody who's working for a nonprofit should dress. So the implication, I'll let you make up your own implication there from like the implication that Mr. Shooter was throwing off. But came in and began to dress them down about everything. Like all the women are wearing like skimpy costumes. You should be ashamed of yourself. And the African American, she has a mohawk and she's wearing leather. What is that supposed to say? That's demeaning to life. And just went through a whole list of the entire script and stuff like this, and went in and told them in no uncertain terms about how horrible Marvel Comics was. Fine, they gave it to another charity, and the money got to be used for people who deserved it. So it's kind of like how it just kind of makes you wonder like how many other donations were they turning away for pedantic reasons. But I digress. This is a unique moment in unique comic book issues in comic book history, one that you cannot find readily available. You have to go searching through back issue bins. You might be able to find them in even dollar bins if you want to, if you're looking really closely enough. I know Lunch Money Comics, a site that I follow and I have a lot of respect for, and I really inspired me to do this, has his copy of Heroes for Hope. Also, the DC one was named Heroes Against Hunger. I don't know if I mentioned that, but Heroes Against Hunger was their version of the family relief book. But he has he's trying to get everybody who's still alive to sign it, and it's fun to see him go along that journey, because I have a similar journey with a different book that I'm kind of retiring. I might do a video on that maybe in the future, but it's not on Marvel Unlimited. It's not on DC Infinity. It is not on, as far as I can tell, any of the downloadable sites, unless, none of the legal ones. So if you want to get this, you have to either already own it, have it in hand, or go look for it in the back issue bins. It's never been reprinted as far as I could tell. Granted, it's a one shot, and usually those don't get reprinted. And since There is certain famine in certain areas of Africa right now, so the problem hasn't gone completely away, but it's not the global pandemic that it was back in the 80s. There's no need to reprint it. Even though, like, Bob Geldof has made numerous installments of Do They Know It's Christmas and Live Aid concerts over the past to help various charities over the years. So, but it's just interesting to see at this point in time when you had two of the major comic book companies decide to like do their own things in competition with each other, but also in conjunction with each other to help the very good. It is one positive story to come out of there, and for all the kudos and like garlands thrown at Jim Starlin and Bernie Wrightson, deserved because they are awesome guys and awesome creators. They should also get a little extra spice put on that for this because it shows the kind of character they are, and they should be vetted for that as well. I hope more people, if I do this, anything from this comes out, because I didn't realize it before in the role they played in both books. Hopefully they will now, if you didn't know before, now you know. So that's another edition of the Crossroads of comics, books, and history. What did you think? Do you have any memories of picking this up on the newsstand? Were you excited about it? Do you have any memories of Live Aid or anything like that? I remember I wanted to watch Live Aid all the way through. That was my plan. Because I think it started like at 7 o'clock in the morning, because like London started before us. They were, I think, 6 hours ahead of us. So I want to do that, but it's my time to mow the neighbor's lawn, and I got paid for it. I got paid for it. My dad basically said, "No, you have an obligation to go out to. Oh, well, watch it. No, go out." So I missed a whole bunch of the concert to go out and mow the neighbor's lawn, which I also used the money to buy comic books. I probably used some of the money to buy the benefit comic books. So that's my one memory from Live Aid. Did you have any different ones? Do you remember these books? Do you have these? Are you like Lunch Money Comics, trying to actually get it signed by everybody who was there? Good luck to him. Leave it in the comments. Have a discussion. And if you made this far, and if you liked what I had to say, like the video, share the video, and subscribe. I'm going to try to do more of these in the future. I have a whole bunch of lists made of all kinds of stuff dealing with pop culture and how certain aspects of pop culture influence comic books and how certain historical events influence comics, and deep dives into like the way the world's worked when certain events happen and controversies in comic books happen. So this it's a lot of work, a lot of research. So if you don't like it, I would rather know and be able to just okay, I'll go back here. But if you do like it, let me know, please. And until then, keep on collecting.